Hello and welcome to this lecture on Adobe Photoshop by Eduonics. In this lecture I'm going to be going over drawing, particularly with a Wacom tablet. And this is just some general drawing techniques and tips. We're going to be drawing this rhino, and I already did the outline in the previous tutorial about setting up Wacom and using your tablet. So this one I'm just going to continue. I doubled the size of the canvas so that I could move my outline off, and it's all sitting on a white background, so I'm just going to go ahead and lock that layer after I get rid of this. So as you can see, I have the outline. I'll be switching between brushing and erasing using the shortcuts, and it's important to note that what you select for an eraser and a brush is a different brush, even though currently I have the same one selected. So with my brush, I'm going to start putting in the tones, and I'm going to pretty much the entire thing is going to be a certain tone. It's going to have a certain amount of darkness to it. So I might pick something like 40%. I want to make it big because I'm just going to do a quick once over. I'm making sure I'm not on my outline or anything. And it's okay to take your time at first. Now if you press the top button on your Wacom, if you're using an Intuos, or whatever the corresponding button would be within the other tablet, you have this option to change the pressure sensitivity. Which is something you might want to do. Because mine is set, this is kind of the lightest. I'm okay pressing down without fear of it becoming heavier. And like after you've gone over one with one weight, you can go back into it, pressing a little harder. It's just that you don't want to take your brush off, or else all of your other marks will be adding on top of whatever you just did. And there is a way around that. I'm just going to erase around the sides here. So if you're getting annoyed by creating a big shape, if you don't lift up, it does that. But let's say I lift it up and I want to get the rest of that. There's a number of ways you can handle it. You can use this as a color, in which case I encourage you to do it from the beginning, but in the end, when I merge this layer with the white layer, it will make it this color. But currently right now it's actually just a transparent color. And when I merge the two, it'll be fine. So there's a number of ways. One thing that helps is to use the magic wand tool, or not the magic wand, but just to select, control click the edge like this. And you might want to do it 1 or 2 times. The only problem is the more that you do it, the more that the area is being selected that you don't want. So once I've done that, I Control-Shift-I to invert the selection. And let's say I wanted to make this outside gray and I didn't want to do that overlapping thing. So I'm still overlapping a little bit. But you can see the difference. It helps is all. Another thing to do, like I said, is just to use the actual color, so have your eyedropper tool out. Because when we merge this down onto something that's white, it'll make it look like this. And we're assuming that we want it to look like that and not this. So either method really works. If you know you're going to be doing a large shape also, then it helps to use a brush like this. That doesn't have the opacity jitter, doesn't have the opacity in it, and just to lay it out like that. In fact, well, I think a lot of people prefer coloring like this, but I like the natural feel that, you know, overlapping is kind of part of it too. Anyway, I have my layer on above everything, so eventually these lines will disappear, these red lines, and that's kind of what I want to happen. I'm actually going to use this that I was just talking about with maybe a 20% just to come in and hit where that light really is. Now there's some coloration back here. You typically don't want to get that. In fact, I think it's a giant rhino poop stain. Wouldn't really worry about it. The reason is because you're trying to get the shape of a rhino, not necessarily that specific rhino, and it depends on the circumstance, obviously. I'm going to set my size jitter to pressure with a minimum of like 21. I think that's good for this brush. And whenever I find a brush you like, whenever you find a brush you like, hit new brush here. You have the option to capture brush size, which is, I'm just going to leave that on. So I'm just comparing the two. I'm looking at the rhino on the left, and I'm continuously looking back and forth to make sure that I'm getting everything the way I want it. So I'm laying in values, and they're pretty indistinguishable from lines. In fact, I can take this off, and it's going to look bad, but this will help in the end. So eventually you want to fly without your outline, and just kind of find the shapes in here. You don't want to have something like your history panel open for this. So I'm going to go along and I'm going to try to bring out this form. And I like to zoom in just a little, just enough to where it will give me the ability to drag the canvas. I don't know why they don't let you drag it, but and basically all you have to do is do what I'm doing right here with your zoom tool. So that's just enough. I should be able to move this around. Always zoom in whenever you're in doubt. Just be mindful of your buildup and stuff like that. You can come in with a blur tool later. But that's the advantage of having the, and I had turned scatter on, I didn't really want that. Make the minimum diameter a little bigger. That's the advantage of having not really sure what I was going to say there, but I guess having Photoshop is the sense that you can come in and use your blur tool or whatever. Transfers opacity. I'm going to do the same thing, have it about here. It's often good to combine them. So I'm going to go and just continue to paint these lines in. And like if you haven't been following around, I encourage you to get a photo to follow around with. Something that you want to draw. And you don't have to stick to the photo, but if you want it for reference, like you don't know how to draw the feet, you're trying to draw a unicorn or something, you'd use a horse, you're not drawing the exact horse, but you do want that body reference in. And I wouldn't worry about the edges so much, as you can just come in and do that later. But it'll look rough at first, and just keep on matching up what you see with the drawing and what it needs on the canvas. And I'm going to just round this out with the values. So I'm going to pause it and continue working. Something to note though, that in changing things quickly, you can use the left and right brackets to change your brush size. Sometimes it's not appropriate to have one that changes with pen pressure. F5 is your brush presets. You can always create a new one down there. You can change things on the fly. If I hit Alt and then right click, I can do all this really quickly. I'm just dragging my pen, I'm not even touching the canvas. If I go up and down, I change the hardness. So that's something that's pretty useful. Just remember hardness and size of your brush. I want something really soft. I want something hard. And at this opacity level, it's a pretty good tool for putting in some of the finer details. To change where your layer is, just control with the brackets. And Alt brackets will just go to different layers. Make sure that, I did undertone. I'm going to jump off this layer now. And I'm going to make one that's just finer. In fact, undertone I should have been off it a while back, but it doesn't really matter. So just keep drawing what you're doing, and then I'm going to pause it and do that, and then come back and show you just a few more techniques. One thing, you might want to change your history states because it's built for big changes which take up a lot of memory. So I have mine set to 15. If you go up to preferences and then performance, you can change that. Just something to keep in mind. You can put up to like 40 or 50 because you might want to just be making tiny brush strokes, and in the end you might not be worried about memory so much and just raise your history states. So one thing I'm going to do is to create a brush. I'm just going to go onto a different layer here. I'm going to pick, and I'm creating this brush for the textured surface, obviously. And I can do it two ways, but since I laid down dark color already, I want to go over it with light, so it's going to be based on the light. And I wouldn't suggest like tracing it necessarily, just kind of make your own. And you want it to be generally square. If you notice, some parts fall off when I make this. Some parts fall off and some parts stay. That's because I want there to be some continuation in it. It's not perfect, but I'm going to go to a new document after I've cut that out. And here we'll give you a better idea. Put a little depth in. So like this goes completely off, which is what I want. In that case, I want there to be something coming completely off right here. Just go up to new brush preset. Under edits, define brush preset. And you can also do this as a pattern. I prefer the brush preset because there's a few more things I'm going to do to it, but just check that out, look it up online, how to do this. Well, particularly I'll tell you the first thing, and that's to adjust my spacing. And you can see in the preview, it'll be to the point where, right there. So I'm getting kind of that texture that I have back there. I'll be doing this in white. So now I've adjusted my spacing. I'm going to hit new. I'm going to just call this Rhino. It looks like this is going to have to go over a little bit, but that's fine. I'm going to do a little bit of a rotation in there too. So that way I can, not diameter though. That way I can do this. And get that texture I'm going for. So I'm actually going to do that when I'm done with the whole thing. But you want to make sure you have your textures on a different layer. There's a blurring step before that. So I'm going to finish laying out my values. And then I'm going to start showing you how to put that in the textures.